Hello friends, Tommy with Studio Sense here. You know, there's so many fragrances that come out, so many new colognes to discover. And sometimes when you try out a fragrance, you might be in a hurry or you might be in a bad mood. It's just like music. Sometimes you really want to hear a song and sometimes you're like, turn that off. Fragrances can sometimes be that way. In fact, today we're going to be taking a look at 5 fragrances that when they initially came out, a lot of people weren't super impressed by them. So I think these 5 fragrances are actually worth a second look. We're going to go over each one of those and see if you like them. If you haven't tried them out yet, I'll give you some reasons why you might want to. Got that and more coming up, so stay tuned. Welcome back, guys. Yes, today we're taking a look at 5 fragrances that initially didn't get a lot of positivity in terms of positive press, positive reviews. Now, ultimately, several of them by now are getting some pretty decent scores, and there's some good reasons for that, and we're going to go over some of those reasons today with these 5 fragrances that I feel are worth taking a second look at. The first fragrance we're going to take a second look at is a flanker that came out fairly recently in the Angel for Men line by Thierry Mugler, and that is Angel for Men Fantasm. A Fantasm didn't come out with a ton of fanfare, and there wasn't a ton of hype. And so when it came out, people were like, oh, okay, an Angel for Men flanker that smells very similar to the original Angel for Men, and then move on. But there are some reasons why you might give this fragrance a second look. First of all, if you already own Angel for Men, then yes, this is going to be very familiar territory for you. But there are some improvements that you might want to set your sights on in the Angel for Men Fantasm. The primary difference in Angel for Men and Angel for Men Fantasm becomes very apparent in the dry down. The dry down of this fragrance is much more gourmandy. It's much more chocolate oriented, and it has a sensual kind of quality to it that the original Angel for Men doesn't hold on to forever. It's in the fragrance DNA, yes, but in the dry down, it kind of loses its footing a little bit. Some of the notes that make it great for wear in cool weather do kind of go away in the long run, and they're held on to in Angel for Men Fantasm. Primarily, we're talking about that trifecta of chocolate. They call it a chocolate noir accord. It's really cocoa absolute, but chocolate noir, okay, sure. There's a bright modern heading in the form of bergamot in Angel for Men Fantasm. In the original Angel for Men, it's more on the new side in terms of formula. It's got more of the modern stylings of the way colognes are handled for men these days, and I like that. I like that about it. One thing that I love about this fragrance that carried over from the original Angel for Men, you see the star is a solid silver star. Several notes in the original Angel for Men come together to form somewhat of a minty, metallic, silver-ish kind of a cool silver quality about it that's carried over, kind of made more dynamic in Fantasm. When you smell Fantasm in the dry down, those combination of accords come together to create this sensual silver. And there are very few fragrances that have a sensual silver-like feel to the aroma. And Fantasm is worth taking a second look at, if not for other reasons that I've mentioned, then for that reason alone. Great date night sensual, everyday wear fragrance in cooler weather. Definitely not for the warmer climes. So if you own the original Angel for Men and you're good with that, I completely understand. But there are facets in the new Fantasm that are worth owning as a standalone. If you've yet to pull the trigger on this fragrance, you might want to give it a second look for the reasons we've mentioned today. Another fragrance that I feel is worth taking a second look at, I think it's a great addition to the line, is from the Carolina Herrera Bad Boy line, and it is Bad Boy Extreme. The cold weather answer to the Bad Boy DNA. It just beefs up everything that you like about the original Bad Boy DNA, and it adds a chocolate topping to that. So the Cocoa Absolute that's been kicked around in this formula is beefed up quite a bit, and this is ramped up quite a bit. And if you like fragrances like any of the Scent Absolute, the Scent Private Accord, any of the Hugo Boss fragrances that feature Menenca fruit, you're gonna really like this because it has that same chocolatey, dusty, sexy, sensual quality. It's definitely very similar to those with ginger, sage, vetiver, Cocoa Absolute combination that makes this a great fall-oriented fragrance. It's for a little bit cooler weather than when the leaves are just starting to turn, but when you're waking up to those 30-degree mornings, this is the kind of fragrance you want to wear, whether it's at the office. So yes, this is definitely one that you can wear at the office. It's not overtly strong that's going to put anyone off. It's one of those sweet, mass-appealing, cold weather light gourmand fragrance. And I think it's worth taking a second look at. A lot of people that don't like the Bad Boy DNA or the Bad Boy line that say it's just a peppery generic fragrance. Well, first of all, that's not true with any of the cobalts, right? The original cobalt, the cobalt elixir. So this came along, and I think it's even better for cooler weather. Again, if you like any of the scent line of Hugo Boss, any of the Maninka fruit featured fragrances, you're gonna really enjoy Bad Boy Extreme by Carolina Herrera. So if that's one that you've yet to pull the trigger on, try a sample out first. I think you'll really enjoy it. Just like the plot of a good sequel, it's just where it needs to be in terms of performance, the longevity's there. Really anything with chocolate in it is gonna recommend itself for cooler weather. Another fragrance that I feel is worth taking a second look at kind of bombed when it first came out. And that's really hard to do with the iconic DNA, the iconic scent profile or family of fragrances that it came from. The fragrance I'm referring to comes from the Dolce & Gabbana The One family. I think this one, which is D&G The One Gold, and then D&G The One Gray. These two are least like the original D&G The One out of all of the ones, plural. But that doesn't mean it's not worth owning, and it's not worth wearing, and it's not worth trying out and giving a second look at. The reason that I recommend giving this a second look is we are right now in the midst of the perfect kind of weather to wear this fragrance. The open of this, the red ginger, blood orange with a little bit of lemon in the open. And I think the reason that many people kind of naysayed, give it negative press, is because that open doesn't last a super long time. The perfection in the open dies down pretty quickly as you get into that spicy heart. And then you're looking at a typical base of like amberwood, vetiver, and patchouli. Basically, the reason I think this is worth a second look and very much worth wearing, gold fragrances often feature kind of oody notes. They somehow do that whole featuring of the brighter side of fragrance notes, but then they go to the dark side of the moon as the sun moves on. Notes that are bright and dark in tandem, both warm and cool at the same time. It's also a very soapy clean. In fact, there are times when I smell this fragrance and I just smell this pure, fresh soap. Not really shower gel, but just a pure, fresh kind of soapy, sudsy clean. It's really nice to wear a fragrance in fall and in cooler weather that reminds you of that fresh, soapy clean. Those are facets usually attributable to fresh fragrances or fresh summertime fragrances. And so that's why I think it's worth taking a second look at Dolce & Gabbana The One Gold. It is still available right now. I feel like in the future it's going to be one of those that's going to be discontinued. So if you haven't gotten yourself a bottle or tried out a sample, now would be the time to do it. Another fragrance that I feel like is definitely worth taking a second look at is another one of those that features that light-dark orientation with an overlay of sweetness, and that is Paco Rabanne's Fantasm Parfum. The original Phantom was lauded because of its technological, I'm not even going to go into the NFT and all of that. Ultimately, what we're worried about with fragrance is not the marketing, but how it smells and how we're going to use it. Fantasm Parfum, first of all, is one of those fragrances that is a lot more complicated than you might first imagine. When you first smell it, you're like, that's just a dark, heavy sweet. It's really hard for Paco Rabanne to get away from that bubblegum sweet because that's their bread and butter, which is basically some form of a variation on bubblegum. And even Phantom has that sweet bubblegummy sensitivity to it. Even the Fantasm Parfum does. But it's done in a much more subtle, acceptable, and crowd-pleasing way in this DNA. Lemon, rhubarb, bergamot, and cardamom in the open of this, which again is a very complicated kind of mishmash of notes. Really hard to pick any of those out, but what you get is this feeling of density, all of this stuff going on and no one particular thing coming to the forefront. But there is a theme in this fragrance, and if I could pick one thing out to be a theme in this fragrance, is a kind of sweet lavender, vanilla, tolu balm trifecta. It's a very heavy, again, light bubblegum kind of sweetness. It's definitely hard not to smell iterations of Invictus in Fantasm Parfum. You still kind of get that. But I recommend this as it's extremely wearable. This is one of those parfums that's safe to wear even at the office. And it's one of those that's perfect for cooler weather and environments and situations. I will admit that Fantasm Parfum is not one of those fragrances for everyone. While it is mass appealing in the way that it comes across, it's not going to be liked by everybody. It's meant for a particular kind of person. Someone in their mid-30s, maybe a little bit on the younger side. It does have a maturity to it. It's something that you can wear every day. It lends itself to being extremely versatile. So casual or dressed up doesn't matter, more on the casual side, but again, perfect for fall, perfect for cooler weather. This is one though that I highly recommend trying out a sample first before going all in. And again, you can determine pretty quickly with that sample whether it's going to be your kind of fragrance or not. Well, the last fragrance I'm going to recommend taking a second look at is one by Ralph Lauren in the Ralph's Club line. It's the last iteration of the line, and that's Ralph's Club Elixir. Now, out of all of the Ralph's Club fragrances, if you don't own any of them, I would say just bypass the Eau de Toilette, the Eau de Parfum, the Parfum, and go straight to the Elixir, because I think it's the best version, the best iteration. And I think the ratings of most websites out there that are fragrance websites that are geared towards men will also agree with me. The reason I'm saying this is worth a second look is because people initially that were, gosh, there's so many releases in Ralph's Club and they all smell the same. Why would I even think about looking at the Elixir? Well, because it is the best of the bunch. That's why you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't try it out and make up your own mind about it. Now, if you initially didn't like Ralph's Club because you thought it was just a generic fragrance that smells like so many other fragrances out there, give this one a try. This one is a little bit more complex of a beast, and it is a beast in terms of performance. So if you're looking for a 12-hour fragrance, this guy is the one. It's got the concentration to back it up. Along with lavender, fir balsam, and frankincense, has a little bit of iris in its focus, as well as leather. Out of all of Ralph's Club fragrances, it's the one that will change the most. There was a program called Elevate Your Senses, Take It to the Next Level from New York to Singapore, and it was a beautiful setting. If there was an actual Ralph's Club, this looks like the place, because it features Ralph's Club in various iterations and various forms of expression. If there's one thing they did right is the kind of dress that this fragrance promotes and is best with. This is the most refined version of Ralph's Club, so it does feel like a black tie affair to some degree, or at least formal wear, or at least dressed up. So if you have to put on a tie every morning, a suit and tie to go to work, this is going to be the kind of fragrance that you'll want to wear to the office. Got a very gentlemanly feel to it and very distinguished, and yet you still can wear it casually. It is meant to be an everyday signature scent. So those are multiple reasons why you should give Ralph's Club Elixir a second look. I feel like it's blind buy worthy, but go ahead and get yourself a sample, try it out, make up your own mind. I think you'll really like it, even as you may not have liked any other previous versions of Ralph's Club. Well, guys, that's it for my 5 fragrances that I feel like it's worth taking a second look at. Sometimes we have so many things to do. You know, sometimes we are in the wrong mood when we try on a fragrance, and so it's good to revisit them and try them on again. We might be surprised that we might find our, next signature scent out of something that we may have bypassed before or just said, I don't like it. In the comments below, though, let everyone know some fragrances that you've tried the first time that you didn't like and the second time that you really liked. What are some that you feel are worth taking a second look at? Guys, thanks so much for tuning in today. As always, thank you so much for your continued support on my channel. I'm Tommy with Studio Sense, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video review.